Hello students. So in our last lecture we have started chapter number 9, that is force and laws of motion. We have studied so far that any motion is happen due to unbalanced force acting on it. It is unbalanced force which creates any kind of motion. Afterwards we have studied first law of motion. First law of motion, which states that any object stays at rest or in uniform velocity if it is moving, or if it is at rest it stays at its original state unless a unbalanced force is acted on them. And afterwards we have studied that any object have some tendency to stay at rest or at uniform velocity. Means if a object is at rest, it will stays at rest until acted upon by an unbalanced force. So the tendency which keeps this object at its original state is called as inertia. We have studied that the physical quantity which keeps an object at its original state, if it is moving at uniform speed, it will keep moving due to its inertia unless an unbalanced force is acted upon it. Or if it is at rest, it will stays at rest because of its inertia unless acted upon by an unbalanced force. So inertia is a qualitative way, or inertia is tendency of a object which keeps this object at its original state. So due to inertia, this first law of motion can also be called as law of inertia. So first law of motion, either it is called as first law of motion or law of inertia. You can understood this term inertia by certain examples that we experience in our everyday life. Like if you are moving, or if you are in a car which is moving at a certain speed, you are sitting in a car which is moving at a certain speed. Now if driver applies suddenly brakes, you fall forward. Like if this is the car in which you are moving, you are sitting here, the car is moving with a speed. Now you are sitting here. If this car is moving in this direction, the driver applies brakes, you fall forward. Your body falls forward, or your body moves forward until this brakes applied on this car. You were sitting straight, or you can say at rest. But when brakes applies, the brake is here unbalanced force which decreases its uniform velocity from which this car is moving. So by this unbalanced force, your inertia is responsible that you fall or collision happens. So here you were moving with a uniform velocity or uniform speed, and your inertia keeps you in that uniform velocity or speed. Your inertia resists when the car brakes or car stays, your inertia is responsible, which keeps you in uniform velocity. That's why you start moving, because your inertia tends you to keep that uniform velocity state. Like in other example, if there is a bus is standing on the road and you are inside the bus and you are also standing, not sitting on the seat. Now if bus starts moving, when bus starts moving, you fall backward. In this case you fall forward because the brakes were applied, you were in motion, but here you were at rest and now the bus started moving, but your inertia wants to keep you in rest. That's why the bus starts, but here you are standing, your feet are in contact with the bus, you tend to remain at rest, you don't want to move due to your inertia. That's why you keep or you fall backward due to inertia. There are other examples also, like when a motor car makes a sharp turn at high speed, you tend to get thrown at one side. If the car makes a sharp turn on the left side, you fall on the right side, or you get thrown to the other side of the turn due to your inertia, because you were moving on this direction with uniform velocity. Now suddenly car moves in other direction, velocity changes, but your inertia keeps you in that velocity only. That's why you get thrown into other direction. Now here is the fact that body will remain at rest unless acted upon by a unbalanced force that we called inertia. This can be also illustrated by some activities given in your textbook, like activities 9.1 and 9.2. 9.1 says that if you have played carom, now if you make a pile, that is one coin on another, you make a pile, straight pile of this on a carom board. Now if you hit with the striker or other coin only the last coin of the pile, you will observe that last coin will move from this pile, but this pile will also falls vertically on the table. Or other activity, like if you place a postcard on a glass, you put a postcard on a glass on which a 5 rupee coin is present. Now if you hit this card with your finger, you will observe that card will thrown out, but the 5 rupee coin will not get out with the card, it will remain at rest and falls in the glass. So this tendency of this coin to remain at rest, if unbalanced force is acted upon it, although it remain at rest, it is because of its inertia. So here inertia of the coin tries to maintain its state at rest even when the card is flown off or card is thrown out. So this is inertia. Now our next topic is inertia and mass. What is the relation between inertia and mass? So all these examples given or all these activities, that shows that there is a resistance. There is a resistance offered by this coin or this pile, or if you are moving in a bus, there is also a resistance offered by an object to change its motion. Means the object doesn't want to change its motion. If it is moving it at velocity, it tends to remain at that velocity, or if it is at rest, it tends to remain at rest. So this property is called as inertia. But do all bodies have same inertia? Do all bodies have same inertia? That is the question. Like if you want to move a box full of books, it is hard to move box full of books. But if this box is empty, it's easier to move it. Like if you kick a football, it will fly away. But if you kick a stone with same force, the stone will not move at the speed of football, or even your foot can hurt. So you see what is the difference between these two, that football is lighter and stone is heavier. Likewise here we have put an 5 rupee coin. If it was a 1 rupee coin, you will need a lesser force to remove this postcard, because 5 rupee coin is heavier than 1 rupee coin. Like there is a force, the amount of force to move a small cart or any small thing, to move this small thing at a higher acceleration, you will need a certain amount of force. But if you apply this same amount of force on a train, the train will not move, or if it moves, it will move at very low velocity, not same as that of cart, because train is much heavier, or train is having a higher mass. So you see here mass is connected with inertia, or mass and inertia have some connection. Let us see what is that. So if you want to measure inertia, you can measure it from its mass. So mass of an object is measure of its inertia. So inertia can be calculated by its mass. So this is the relation between inertia and mass, that inertia of any object depends on its mass. If it is having a higher mass, the inertia is also high. If the mass of an object is lower, the inertia is also lower. So now you have understood the first law of motion, inertia, and also the relation of mass for its inertia. Now we move on to our second law of motion. Second law of motion. So in first law of motion, we learned that unbalanced external force acts on an object and its velocity changes, that the object gets acceleration when acted upon by a unbalanced force. So we would now like to know that acceleration of an object depends on the force applied on it, or how can we calculate force. So again, let us recount some observations from our everyday life. Like during a game of table tennis, you may have heard of table tennis. It is having a small ball of plastic. If this ball strikes you or hits you, you don't get hurt. But if a cricket ball moving with a high acceleration, if it is hit by a bat, it is moving with high acceleration. If this ball hits you, you will get hurt. Like even a small bullet which is having a very low mass. This bullet is having very low mass, but it can kill a person when fired from gun. So when this bullet gets fired from a gun, it is having a acceleration which is very high. So this observation suggests that the impact or the result, impact or effect produced by object depends on its mass and velocity. So there is some relation between mass and velocity. So one such property called momentum was introduced by Newton. There is a new term, momentum, which is denoted by P of an object. This is defined as product of its mass and velocity. So P is equal to mass into velocity. Momentum is equal to mass into velocity. So here momentum has both direction and magnitude. Direction because it is having a velocity, so its direction will be same as of velocity. And the SI unit of mass is kilogram meter per second. Let us consider a situation in which car is having a dead battery. So you cannot start it with its self start. So you have to push the car along a straight road to give it a speed of at least 1 meter per second. This speed is enough for the engine of car to start. Now if one or two person are pushing this car, so here the push is unbalanced force, it hardly starts. It will not move with just 1 or 2%. It will move, but it will not start, or it will not attain this speed. But if this 2% keeps pushing this car will attain this speed. So here you see time is also responsible for change of momentum. Here momentum is changing with time. So this means that change of momentum of car, it is not determined only by the magnitude of force. So this change of momentum not only depends on the magnitude of force. Here magnitude of force is 2% pushing this car. It doesn't depend only on this 2%, it also depends on time. So the change of momentum of car is not only determined by the magnitude of force, but also by time during which this force was exerted. So this says that force is necessary to change the moment of an object depends on time rate at which the momentum is changed. So the second law of motion states that the rate of change of momentum of an object is directly proportional to the applied unbalanced force in the direction of force. Means force and momentum or change of momentum, rate of change of momentum are directly proportional. Means if the applied unbalanced force increases, the rate of change of momentum will also increase. Means force is directly proportional to rate of change of momentum. If we want to calculate change of momentum, we will have to substitute initial momentum from its final momentum, that is P2 minus P1. Now there is also a mathematical formulation of this second law of motion, which we will study in our next lecture. Thank you, students.